Thank you. Good evening. We're here tonight to look at more budgets, and we're going to start out with Town Clerk's office. Susan Galvin, our Town Clerk, is here tonight. We also have from the Board of Health, Carolyn Kinsella, and we have our Treasurer Collector, Jim McAuliffe, and eventually we'll see Bob Bushway, our new assessor. And we'll start out with Susan, and I don't know if you've met everybody. We have some new faces at this table. Chuck Garimbacus is new to the board, the committee. Mike Mahal. Neighbor?
Yes.
Mike Mahalchik, Lee Michael McLean, and Julia Getman, you know.
Yes.
And Phil Matthews, and Jean Eckner, and Jim Potter, and Betty White.
Hello.
You know the rest of us.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So, obviously the town clerk does vital business for the town, takes care of our vital records, and you also look after all the elections, and you have a couple of assistants. And I don't know, why don't you tell us what's facing you and what's going on, and I will bring up your budget.
Okay. So currently I operate with two full-time staff. Besides myself, there's an assistant town clerk and a senior clerical staff. We perform essential functions such as providing all deaths, births, marriage certificates for all of our residents. Recently, the state has adopted a new death module, which is online, and it's had its little challenges because you have so many different functions working with it. We have doctors, we have hospitals, we have funeral homes. So there's a lot of collaboration, and so there's still little wrinkles and stuff. It does take quite a bit of our time right now because it is new. I hope that will level out at some point. I am concerned a little bit because of Quincy Hospital closing down, the influx in Milton Hospital with our deaths. So we will keep track of that and see how that is affecting us. Probably have better statistics next year on that.
Well, you get, let's hope your business isn't affected too.
Yes, I hope not.
By a higher mortality rate in town. But
Well, it's not just in town residents, it's anybody who dies at the hospital, so.
right. And, I guess that's part of the business of hospitals.
Unfortunately,
Let's hope it's not a growth business for you.
yes.
So, I guess, I don't know if anybody else has any questions right off the bat, but why don't we take a quick walk through your budget here. And this, I apologize, this is a PDF, so it's not going to show well on the screen once we get to your general expense sheet. But at any rate, so level service, you're looking for $264,000 as opposed to keeping things roughly the same as they were last year, 258. So one of the things we want to do this year is focus on what it is you're asking that's different than last year. And since you're not looking to hire somebody or fire somebody, and your salary and wage line is steady, then obviously that we'll be looking at your general expenses. But the first thing that I want to identify is this year, for the first year, we decided that we wanted to protect people's contracts. And you're showing a contract but I'm not sure what it is.
Okay.
So maybe you can tell us what the contract is that we're protecting.
Okay, so I have a copier machine.
Okay?
I also have contracts for the election equipment. So, and I have a small contract for our timestamp machines.
Okay, great. So we'll see those in detail later on, I think, on your Schedule E of expenses. Okay. I just want to point out here, encumbered from the prior year for 14. I don't know if anybody can see this. Well, encumbered from the prior year was $2,900, and you ended up with a reserve fund transfer also in 2014 for $1,000. And I don't know, you could remind me what that was for.
That was for an additional costs for an election.
Right. So that kind of pumped your budget up a little bit for 14, your actual budget for what you could spend money on, even though the encumbered amount you'd already committed to what your expense on that would be. So it's a little, in your narrative, it's a little disingenuous to say, oh, and now you're not giving me the same as what you gave me in 14, because some of what you got in 14 was from 13 through the encumbrance and the RFT, of course. Last year for 15, I think we did a pretty good job. You were looking for about 6,000 above level dollar, and we were able to give it to you. And part of that, I believe, was for courses and things like that, and I presume therefore that you are involved in these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we did last year, for the members that weren't present, is prior years, there were different line items that didn't really depict what was going on in the clerk's office. So in order to streamline it, make it a little bit more easy to understand, we broke things out. So therefore, if you look at the line items now, the professional services is now no longer a line item. That line was being used for elections, so we did create a new line item that's called E&R expenses. So any costs that occurred for elections come out of that line item.
Okay, again, I apologize for the way the PDF shows up. The line item is down here, it's E&R expenses. It's showing as 0 in the past, and it's now, and it clocks in for fiscal year 2015 at $19,645. This was a great leap forward for rationalizing the operations of the town clerk, I think.
I think it makes it,
Because,
from my,
because you're also responsible for the elections in town. The selectmen have a budget called election and registration, and there are still some expenses there. They're mostly labor, and I guess they're mostly there because the selectmen choose appoint the electors, or the
right,
election workers.
that's correct.
Is there any other reason that isn't entirely in your budget that you know of?
None that I know of, no. You know, I did question other clerks as to how it's handled, and they do usually have two separate accounts. It's usually managed by the clerk. However, you know, the practice here in Milton has been that this, because the selectmen appointed, also out of their E&R, the warrants are printed. So that cost is absorbed, as well as truck rental that we utilize on election days.
So so it's a good thing some of you have paper copies or laptops, because this is not doing very well here, but the line item for election and registration expenses is, I mean, it's essentially, it's a bill, okay? And maybe we should consider it as a contract, okay? But now we get into the interesting scenario where that contract actually drops, because we're moving ahead. We're in fiscal year 16, you're looking at 2 elections instead of 3. It doesn't drop by a third, but it does drop. So in
And the reason why it doesn't drop by a third is because the state and federal elections and primaries, the town absorbs much less of the cost. The state picks up for the printing of the ballots and portion of programming some of the machines. For the town election, we are responsible for all costs. And so printing in the ballots, depending upon how many candidates you have, based on the population expected turnout, those numbers can fluctuate from year to year.
So in the past, all these costs were just buried in the different categories. Now they're segregated into election and registration costs, and we see that they're coming down. So if it was a contract that was coming down, we'd say, hooray, life is getting cheaper, and aren't we glad we protected something that was going down? Well, we didn't specify that this particular item would be deemed a contract. It is a collection of expenses, and it does vary. But it has gone down, so Susan rightfully said, oh, wow, here's an opportunity for, since you're asking me to keep my general expenses level, and this is in my general expenses, well, now I've got $3,000 to spend on something else, because it is coming down from fiscal year 15, 19 grand to fiscal year 16 grand. So I understand. So basically, if you can look at the bottom of the screen, in fiscal year 15, 36,000 was appropriated for general expenses, and for level service, Susan is looking for 41, even though the election and registration line is dropped by 3. So that's a boost of 8, and so you go, okay, what's going on with the 8? And primarily, or 5,900 of that is sitting in the top line, advertising. And advertising is I guess it's a curious outgrowth of...
From 100 to this, and it's glaring, I know. And
You want to tell us about it?
sure.
Great.
So the reason why the significant increase is, part of the requirements anytime a bylaw is passed is, once it passes a town meeting, I submit it to the Attorney General's office. Once it meets the approval of the Attorney General's office, I am required to publicize that in its entirety. As we all know, the zoning articles can be quite lengthy.
Can be what?
Quite lengthy.
Lengthy.
Oh, lengthy.
Yes.
And therefore costly to publish.
I get it.
So, this year, I happened to encounter one of the articles. It was for there, and it took up 3 pages in the Milton Time. And it had to be published for 2 weeks. I did not have the funds to pay for it. Fortunately, the Selectman's office was able to help me out that one time. That 5,900 is pretty much a guesstimate, because I don't know how lengthy one article from the next. I don't know how many articles will be approved. I thought to put nothing there and then come in for RFTs for the future, that's not a, and maybe that is the method in which you would deem is appropriate. I just wanted to make sure that it was brought to your attention, and so although I put 6,000 down there, that's really an arbitrary number because of the unknown.
Phil, please.
Susan, does the law state that you have to publish the entire article that's in the
Well-
warrant, even though the article and the recommendation may be exactly the same in their language?
Well, I talked to John Flynn because that was my concern as well. And after speaking with him at length today, he would be in agreement that I could just post the recommendations going forward.
It should be cheaper, obviously.
It will,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And so I'm hoping. There are other methods that have been used by the former town clerk, and they can be, a booklet can be created, and it could be sent out to all residents of the town. Again, that would be very costly for every town meeting. I would have to look at the costs to see which would be more cost-effective, obviously. The other one is to, again, produce a booklet and put it in one or two locations within the 10 precincts. Given the controversial nature of a lot of our articles, I would hate to subject the town to any lawsuits that somebody did not see it. And, you know, in speaking with John Flynn, the town attorney, both him and I felt that we are of the time that it does have to be publicized.
Steve?
So is this a case where the law is not keeping up with technology? Because you could think that you could use the town
The
website
website,
or
I
even the
agree.
cable TV to just
I agree
roll it.
to have it, and right now, it's not. I'm hoping, you know, now that open meeting law, we're able to use the websites, I'm hoping that we will get to that point. It's not there yet, and certainly as soon as it is, it will be, that will be the method of choice.
Darnell?
Yeah, well, mine goes on the side of with the website, because I think the website would be, it's more available and a lot more, you know, consistently available than a copy of the Milton Times in
I-
today's day and age. I mean, you know, just if you look straight out at technology and things of that nature. And I was wondering if it'd be a posting in the Milton Times making reference back to the website. So you have,
I did ask
Summary,
John Flynn
a
if we
summary,
could
and
just
then
say it would be, and just give a
summary and then
general.
full verse.
Because the
and-
planning board does do that when they are posting the meetings. Unfortunately, the interpretation of the law does not allow us to do that in this case. Hopefully, it'll come to pass, but at this point, it's not there.
I got Paul and then Lee Michael.
Susan, is there any rumblings that this law is, that there's interest in changing this law to keep it up with technology, or is there still zero? So is the town?
As far as I know, there's zero. I am attending a conference in first week of February, and one of the seminars that I am going is on posting with the Attorney General's in the requirements. So I'm hoping that I'll have more information at that time.
But for the time being, these publishing costs will be regularly incurred by the
Right.
town for
Right,
the
and-
foreseeable future.
Right.
Okay.
And for this year alone, we have 6 that just were approved from the May, and I submitted another 7 from the October. So I don't know how much it will cost. But you will know as soon as I do.
Right. Lee Michael?
Are you currently posting the full text on the website anyway?
I am not.
Okay.
No.
My recommendation would be to do that, because since you said that your concern is making sure that the town isn't open to future lawsuits and that all the citizens know, some of them are more comfortable going to the website instead of Milton Times anyway, so I think it would be good to be doing it in both places.
I agree.
And then someday when Milton Times can drop off or just be an abbreviation, you'll already have that process in place.
I agree. I think that's a great suggestion, and I definitely will do it.
Thanks.
So perhaps you could tell us how much it costs to publish those ads?
Well, for the 3 pages, it was $2,400 for the 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that was one article. Granted, now,
Well, that was a fairly lengthy article.
it was.
But it's not longer than, say, for instance, the citizens petition that will be in the May warrant for condominium development. And who knows if that'll pass? It's unforeseeable. So in a way, since it's unforeseeable, you could appeal to the warrant committee for a reserve fund transfer. Because we don't know if these lengthy articles will pass or if they won't. Sometimes they get shot down at town meeting or referred back to the planning board. So it is unforeseeable, but I'm really glad you brought this to our attention because you could have a $6,000 expense out of the blue. Or not out of the blue, but twice a year. And obviously for 16, the remaining, if we pass an article at town meeting, the Attorney General won't get it back to us until 16.
Correct.
So that would properly be there, at least cover the first $2,400. So we might, I'm sure we'll look at that. So can you tell me, I should look at my own paper copy because it's difficult to see what's going on here. The line you have going from 9,000 to 10,000 is...
Town census.
Again, that is a requirement mandated by state, that every resident, or every household receives a census. That's how we keep our records up to date. It's how citizens prove their residency. So it is an important function, and it is required by law.
Right, so this is the envelope we get every year.
Yes.
And this is the cost of the form and the postage
Form,
and
the
everything involved in
postage,
that.
we're required to
exercise.
print books, and send out cards to those that are saying they no longer are residents to the,
Mhm.
in the town.
Great. Phil?
Susan, the information from that town census is what goes into what we lovingly call the nosy book,
Yes.
isn't it? Now, you sell those, right?
That's correct.
What's the current price of one?
$15 per book.
And do you know how many you sell per year?
Well, the price of it, the amount had been going down. Prior years, it was a hot ticket item.
Yeah.
So we were purchasing like 500, and we were going right through them. Now, they're not as, people aren't as interested.
Mhm.
They can get them online if they ask me. I don't publish it on our website, but if they ask, I will email it to them.
Have you ever thought of establishing a revolving fund
No,
for that,
no.
where you would use the funds from your sale of the nosy book to cover the cost of your town census?
I hadn't thought of that, no.
Okay. Could you let us know what we've sold in the most recent year?
Absolutely, I can give you.
Yeah, 'cause it
I'll
might be
give
worth
any of
you
this.
doing that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Steve?
Let you finish writing, Susan.
Thank you.
But since Phil cracked it open, revenues,
Yes.
your office is able to collect revenues for different permits and licenses and things like that.
Right.
And we didn't ask for a spelling out of it particularly. The question I have is, now that you've been in your office for a few years, have you been able to, or would you be able to do an analysis that would look at the fee and permit costs to see if they are consistent with, the labor that's required for your staff to put into them? Because that's generally considered to be a fair level for a permit. And some, technologies might have saved you a lot of time so that you're able to issue them more inexpensively, and in other cases, there may be a lot more work involved than is accounted for in the current fees. As, it is a fee-based service, some of what you do, and so to make sure that, the cost of those issuances or whatever it is covered by the permit fee schedule that you've got.
Right, since I've taken office, I have not altered the fee schedule or anything, and that is something that I am looking at and hope to have a better analysis by the end of May. And I certainly will, as soon as I get it, share it with everybody.
Okay. Does anybody have any further questions for Susan? Well, I guess you're off the hook.
Well, I do have a bit of bad news, too.
Right,
For
right.
the fiscal year 17. There has been changes to the election law, and that will impact my office significantly. On a good note, early voting has been established, so residents now will be able to vote for no reason. Currently, you have to have a reason in order to absentee vote. So the impact, I would imagine, will double the workload in my office. It will take effect with the presidential election, given that that's usually like an 86% turnout. And with the absentee ballots and the staff that I currently have, we worked around the clock. So I can only imagine that with having early voting, that there will be an increase in that. Now, the procedures on how that is to fall out, it hasn't been established by the Secretary of State. I know there are certain requirements as to the hours that were open. There had been talk that originally that we would have to have a clerk and a warden at each of the 10 locations for 11 days, but that's not happening, thank goodness. Whether or not we will have to have a clerk and a warden housed in our office during that time, that's yet to be remained. So I won't have that information. There is a task force studying all of that and setting up, trying to see what the impacts will be, whether the state will be giving us any funding to help offset some of the costs. I don't anticipate having any of that information until August of 2016, when the election is in November of 2016. So even though I'm hoping that there might be some more information than I have now, at least by the next budget session, I do think it's important that I at least give the committee a heads up that that is coming. What that means to, at this point, I really can't give you a concrete, anything that I'd say would be a guesstimate.
Well, it's nice to know
Yeah.
that it's coming, along with
Yes.
other things. It might be one more reason for an override. So, yeah, no, it's difficult to say. I mean, obviously, if you have to have a lot more manpower over a lengthy period of time, you're going to be looking at a lot of seasonal, a lot of overtime.
Right.
Right now, your overtime is $2,500 a year. A couple of years ago, it was $2,000.
Right.
And it seemed to be predicated on how many elections you had. So, should it go down this year?
It could.
Perhaps you can.
Certainly,
turn it
they would
back.
not be abusing it or anything. Anytime the staff has to work late, it's certainly isn't an abuse. There's more than enough work outside of elections
Right.
for my staff to do.
Well, you never know if there's going to be a special election as well, so we had that recently. Okay, so we hear the pounding hooves of more expense coming down the road at us. But other than that, things are in pretty good shape. You're not aware of any problems with
I know everything I know at this
archiving
time.
things? Great, great. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Susan, for coming.
Thank you.
and
Thanks, Susan.
telling us what's up.
Thanks, Susan.
Appreciate it. Okay, so Bob, thank you for coming. We're going to talk to Carolyn Kinsella now from the Board of Health, and she'll be able to tell us what her mission is for the town. I think you referred to yourself as the unseen agent, or the...
Yes. So I have some, a little bit of paperwork to pass out, just
Great.
about what the Board of Health does, what we do and why we do it.
Thanks.
We do so many different things in the Board of Health. I never even realized it till I was working in the Board of Health. So I'm the health director, I'm a new health director. I started in April. This is my first time to the warrant committee. I work
It's
full-time.
easy. It's not, it's a piece of cake, don't worry about it.
So I work full-time, 37.5 hours, and I have a health inspector, Nellie, who's wonderful. She does our health inspections, food and housing, and she goes to the pools and helps me with the camps during the year. And I have she only works 25 hours part-time. And I have Jean Peterson, she's our clerk, and she works part-time too. She works 21.5 hours for us in the Board of Health. And currently, we have a vacant health agent position, which is 22.5 hours, and that's been vacant for the past year.
Okay.
And we advertised for that 3 times. We're having a bit of trouble filling that position because it's just a part-time position.
So, any hope there?
So I'm going to advertise again this week, and hoping that we'll get some bites.
So, you don't have a budget big enough for doing a lot of advertising, so I imagine we're gonna see you with a small request for
We did have
transfer.
a revolving fund transfer last year to advertise for that health agent position. And we may have to come back again and ask for another transfer for that. But first, we're going to try to put the advertisement in just the local MHOA, the local organizations, to see if we can, it's kind of specialized, the health agent, soil evaluation and sanitation, so,
Hard to find.
yes.
Kevin?
Is this a new position, Carolyn?
So it is a new position. What they did with my position, so I used to be the public health nurse, and I worked 22.5 hours as the public health nurse for 6 years. And then when Michael Blanchard left the position as health director, I became the health director and the public health nurse combined. And so that opened up the position of health agent for 22.5 hours. So I'm both the health director and I'm also the public health nurse
So
combined.
this is a part of the job that Mike used to do.
Yes.
What does this job entail, just generally?
So housing complaints and septic and probably housing and whatever they can bring. We'll cross-train them, to do food or nuisance calls, and every day is different at the Board of Health. Forwarding cases, we get a lot of.
Is he out of the office, working out of the office primarily, or?
We'd like it to be 3 days, 3 days work. You can be in and out of the office, but we really need a warm body. to help us out in the office because we're so short-staffed.
Thank you.
And I also took over, Dr. Wolf retired, and I'm also the animal inspector. So I absorbed that position too. So I issue quarantines, and that's taking up some time too. Which I didn't realize that so many dogs are biting dogs and cats are biting people, and so that's another addition of what I'm doing.
So let me get this straight. You're now doing the job that 3 people were doing before.
It's been very, very challenging. I can't tell you, very challenging. Yes.
So when Michael was there, he had you and full-time.
No, I was 22.5, so I was part-time.
Oh, you were part-time?
Yep,
And
Nellie.
he had Nellie.
And then Debbie Manning retired, but she was part-time.
Okay,
Yes.
that's how it worked. So if you find this part-time health agent, you feel that you'll be able to catch back up? I mean, you must have a backlog of sort of inspections that are due and things like that.
Yes. So I'm hoping when we get the agent, that they're able to help with the septic, which is kind of in a lull right now because it's the wintertime, thank God. But it'll start picking up, and people will be calling and putting in new septic systems. Yeah. And perk tests, yep.
Okay, so you're especially hoping for someone with those qualifications, because to train somebody new would take a little time.
Yes. But we might have to look at that, training somebody new, if we can't find the right person.
Interesting. Okay. So, I mean, this is your big issue right now, obviously. And you are advertising, and maybe you'll get there. I think people maybe want to look at the overall budget picture for the Board of Health. Personnel services, even including the new position, .5 position, the personnel service line is actually under what it was for fiscal year 14. Okay, it's 179,000 as opposed to 185.
And Michael was at top step, so Michael Blanchard left and he was at top step, and I came in at the bottom step.
So the good thing about that happening was that you were able to pull a 3% transfer at the end of June.
Yes.
Last year, take some money out of, unused money out of salary and wages and put it into supplies. And your supply line has traditionally been $2,000. And this was this is a windfall for you in terms of being able to stock up a bit, I trust.
Yes.
But in recognition of that, or your level service request is for 3,000 as opposed to your normal 2,000, so you've recognized that you really can't get by on the 2,000. Is that, or is there a specific category?
So it is a crunch.
It is a
Crunching
category.
with
It's-
just $2,000. And also I'm taking on, as I took on the animal inspector, I'm using my car a lot of times to go out, and mileage falls under the general expenses. So that has gone up, the mileage expenses.
Okay.
And postage and, sending out flu packets and things like that. The postage goes up, and
So I'm mainly looking at training. You have $750 for training, and we don't know who that's for, but presumably that any of you might need some training in order to fulfill your functions.
yeah, so I'm a nurse and I need 15 credits every 2 years. And then Nellie is a health inspector, and to get her certifications current, she needs 24 credits every 2 years. So we are consistently going out to new trainings, there's new laws, and there's always something that we're going to, you know, increase our educational knowledge in the Board of Health and, you know, things that are new that are going on. Yeah, we do a lot of trainings in the Board of Health.
So who's paying for this? Sorry, Darnell, can you, so who's paying for that training now?
So that transfer, we did, that 3% transfer.
Oh, right, you were able to
So I
sign
was
up,
able to
right.
take, the test,
Sign up for the training.
yes, and then I did a pool
for this
training.
year. Right.
There was a couple of trainings, and it was expensive for those trainings.
So I'm just wondering who, before that, who was paying for the trainings? Or were we just not being trained?
I think it was, you know, some of the trainings, the pool training is every 5 years.
Okay.
So I think that 5 years ago, the general expenses budget was heftier than $2,000. So I think that at that time, I think it's been consistently going down a bit to 2,000, but
Can't go down forever. Darnell?
Yeah, because also, that 750, I don't think it's gonna work, because you see you're gonna be bringing somebody new in, needing training. Where's that training coming from, and what certifications are they gonna need?
yeah, I don't know.
We're talking about they coming in now, talking about 16 is where that training is gonna have to take place to bring them up to speed.
Right.
So, for that level service, and that's what we're looking at, is level service, not level dollar here. I don't know if that number's the right number there. I might want to revisit that so that we have a better idea, understanding what the actual numbers should look like. And where is that, the animal inspector, where are they housed? Where are they usually housed in there?
So it's
Their
right from the Board
person-
of Health.
Huh?
So it's right from the Board of Health.
Right
So we
through-
have an animal control officer, that's Nancy Bersani, which she's great. She goes out if there's rabid raccoons and things like
Right,
that.
that, yeah.
But from the Board of Health, what happens is I get like faxed bite reports, comes into the Board of Health, and then I have to follow up on the bite reports.
Okay.
Just to make sure, you know, the animal doesn't have rabies.
Okay, and the person who was taking care of that, probably who said retired,
He retired.
he retired, and was he a volunteer, or was his,
Dr. Wolf
What
was
was the
wonderful. He
volunteer?
was a volunteer, and he did all that pro bono for the town for years. Yes, he did have a stipend at one time. I do know that, but that was eliminated for mileage. He had a stipend, but he did it pro bono. It was wonderful.
and in your level service, I don't, where have you reflected the the mileage and stuff that you're adding to your car? And stuff that, where's that reflected in your level service here?
What page you on, I'm sorry?
I'm just asking, because I didn't see it here. Where you reflecting these things? I'm asking you, where you reflecting in your level service, because this is where you're telling us, this is what it's taking to run your office to get it.
So,
Right, not level dollar, but the level service, because I'm just asking. And the reason I'm asking is because I don't think these numbers are right for what you're trying to do in your office. And that's why I'm asking these questions the way I am. Okay, that's why. It's not, understand you're trying to be frugal, but the picture here is just not right. That's all.
Well, last year, the actual expense for vehicle allowance was $137, and you had a $450 budget. So if you triple your mileage or triple your usage, this, in 15, you'll use it up. You'll be about right. Does that work? Do you think you might be putting in, so far this year, are you racking up miles 3 times as fast as,
I wouldn't say 3 times as fast.
okay, so you're probably okay
Yeah.
on the mileage. But the training could be another issue. And dues and membership, you had a budget of $350, and because of the transfer, you were able to spend $1,500 in that category. I take it some of those memberships are good for more than a year?
They're not.
No.
They're
I
not?
wish they were, no, they're not. So the
Okay.
yearly memberships to like MAPHN, the Public Health Nurses, MHOA, which is the Health Officers Association, and these organizations allow us to come for trainings and give credits.
Okay, because you have 850
Yeah,
in that category where you spent 1,500 the year before. So that's, unless you have some memberships that are worth a couple of years, that's worrisome. Now, that's way better than the $350 you had in fiscal year 14 originally.
Is that the 3%? Is that why it's so high?
Yep,
Yeah.
well, that's what you said you
Yeah.
spent it on.
So we did, we spent it a lot of it on memberships, which I didn't realize, there are a lot of memberships that and whoever comes in, they'll have to get a membership too. So I didn't realize how much membership costs to
Right.
these organizations to keep current.
So the 850 you have in your level service may not be equal to that demand. Would you be able to tell us, give us a list of your memberships and their costs? I mean, not right now, but if
Yeah.
you could email that to me
Yeah.
sometime, that would be great, just so we understood what you're actually looking at for the staff you have on hand, and perhaps what you might need for your vacancy once you fill that position. That'd be great.
Sure.
Okay. And now, in your narrative, you're also, you're looking for a copy machine.
I'm looking for a copy machine. I have a picture of a 14-year-old copy machine that we have, and it's broken down. Finally, the parts were too antiquated and they couldn't be replaced. And it's a Toshiba, the same copier that I think the clerk's office has, Park and Rec has, and it's the brand name that we have in the office. And John O'Leary came in and I asked him for, the best price, the state contract price, the most economical price for this copier, for $4,080.38. It comes with 36 months of free service. It comes with no toner till the 4th year. And he said it was the most economical, and it looks better looking than the one 14-year-old. But, so I'm hoping that if there's money in the budget, that we can get a new Toshiba, and if we do, we'll keep it for another 15 years. And we won't have to come back again and ask.
I don't know, they might not make them like this anymore, I don't know. So you do a lot of copying then?
So we do copying, and if we have bigger projects, Jean runs upstairs and runs copies upstairs, and scanning too. If there's a lot of pages, we'll go upstairs and scan them, yep.
Hey, Michael?
Did you say that if you were to get the new copier, you'd have 3 years of toner included?
Yeah,
No,
no toner
maintenance.
till the 4th year, so I guess 3 years of toner. Yeah,
Okay.
3 free toner, yep.
So your narrative, to me, I thought that meant 3 cartridges, but you mean 3 years.
Yeah, I think 3 years is no toner till the 4th year. So
Okay.
it must be 3 years
So-
of toners.
It'd be interesting to know how much you spend per year on toner, because there would be a reduction in some budget somewhere, right? You wouldn't have to buy toner anymore, you're presumably paying for toner now?
We have another machine too. We have more than one machine in
Okay,
the office, yeah.
but you're paying for toner for the machine that keeps breaking down, and you wouldn't need to put toner in it anymore for
That's-
3 years, right?
That machine's been broken for about 8 months,
Okay, so there wouldn't be a reduction in toner then?
right? Yeah,
This is not printing.
yeah,
Although,
the one that's,
what would prevent you from stopping to use the other machine and just running all of your copies through the new, hopefully more high-efficient machine that has included toner in the price?
oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
If you have 2 machines and you're printing on one of them right now and you're paying for the toner for it, and you're gonna get a new, let's say you were appropriated money to get a new machine, and the price for toner was included on that machine, couldn't you stop making copies on the one that's costing you money and just make the copies on the one that has toner included?
Yeah, we could do that and save some money.
Toner is just really expensive, so I'm
It is
wondering
very
if you could
expensive,
look at how
right.
much it costs you to, in
Yeah,
toner
we
right
could-
now.
We
And
could
I'm wondering if
stop
they
it,
can make
yeah.
copies for every department in town.
Yeah, okay, hang on just a second. I just want to refer back to your actual narrative and what you wrote, okay? Because it says this includes 36 months of free service, which is great, and 3 toner cartridges. Sort of a, and when I read that, I thought, okay, that's the initial purchase package, and that'll get you through. I have no idea how many toner cartridges you might use in a year, but I don't think, I think that's 3, not free.
Right.
Right, but she said it differently than what it's written.
Okay.
3 toner cartridges.
Hmm.
So I have here on my notes, 3 free toners, I won't need toners till the 4th year.
So one toner
One
cartridge
toner
does you a year? I'd be surprised. Darnell maybe can shed some
Yeah,
light
actually,
on
it's
this.
some of these things, but, no, actually, it's according with the contract you have. You're probably, if you have a service contract on top of your system, and I'm not sure, that's what you have to check. Certain service contracts will basically, in the service contract, award you a certain amount of copies, and that's how they include your toner in that service contract. So if you're rated for X amount of copies on that copier, as long as you don't exceed that, your toner is included. But if you go significantly over that, you're billed a surcharge on those copies.
And it might be based on 8 months of downtime.
No, but that's how a lot of the contracts are written. So it's based on the number of copies that you're rated for. So they're not just giving it away, so we can't print them out for the whole town.
Oh.
Nice idea, but they're not in business for no reason. So I would check with them about that and make sure it's not just 3 free toner cartridges. But I would check the wording of those contracts because that is a very big difference in the expense line to an office or an organization, how that contract is written. Because if it's written in there that you have a certain number of copies and it's covered, your tone is covered under those, really nice deal. If it's 3 free toner cartridges, you got a big bill coming. So that's a big difference in the wording there. So we want to make sure you know what the wording is on that contract. So you definitely know how it's gonna affect and how it's gonna hit your budget. Just so you have an idea.
Phil?
Since we're considering this for a possible expenditure over and above what you're asking for in your budget, what's the reason that you have 2 copiers? Is one a backup to the other? Is one do certain things that the other can't do?
So this is more, of a copier, like a high-speed copier, and also for scanning. And the one we have now doesn't scan. So this, now with technology, I'm scanning more things than I ever have this last 2 or 3 years. And even yesterday, I was scanning like a contract to somebody. And Jean has to go upstairs, and there was just too many pages in it. And so it does more than just print. It's
So you prefer to store these electronically rather than in a hard copy? Okay.
So, we don't really want to finance redundancy. You say you have to go upstairs. Can you just go upstairs if you need high-speed scanning services?
Yeah, we can go upstairs.
So I guess it comes down to, do you really need this copier? If you can go upstairs. If that's a shared, if you can share resources like that, the copier upstairs.
We could go upstairs. I know Jean goes upstairs. When she goes upstairs, she has to lock the door and go upstairs, and because there's no one else in the office a lot of times. And she does go upstairs and locks the door. So can it be done? Yes. Is it saving more time if it would be in the office? Yes. Then we could just step over there and scan it instead of going up and down the stairs. But, I mean, do we absolutely need it 100%?
I mean,
No,
I
we
I
go
don't know how
upstairs.
often you need to use that, you know, a high-speed scanning machine as opposed to the copier you have in your office that is working. I got Darnell and then Steve.
Which department are you going into to do your copying and scanning now?
It's like on the main floor, the second floor. It's building, yeah. Without,
So I'm wondering which office is that hitting for their expense liners and stuff, so, you know, 99 of it, so. If you can get, I would appreciate if we could get the numbers for the copier and the right numbers and stuff, and figure out what that is, because the cost of maintaining and playing around with a bad copier exceeds the cost of having a good new copier a lot of times, just to let y'all know about that as well. So we can, you know, say, oh, keeping the old one is great, but the tonal cost and all that stuff up front is a lot more expensive sometimes than just go ahead and just having a new copy. So,
Steve?
Yeah, so getting the parts for the old one is insane, the 14-year-old. How old is the other copier? And if it's several years old, is it near to the end of its life too, and you could just get this one new one and have it do everything that you needed?
it's several years old, but it's not as old as this other one, yeah.
Things just don't last.
Right.
Electronics don't last 14 years, so, but yeah, if the other one's 5 or 6 years old and you're gonna run into the same things and maybe even more quickly because the stuff is just replaceable now, so. You know, if we're talking that, okay, so you don't get this one, you're gonna use the old one, and then that breaks down in 3 months, then we're right back where we didn't need to be. So if that's, you know, if you could get us some condition on that thing, it may make more sense to have the one new that can do the high speed and the scanning and everything else.
Mike?
I got two questions, actually. First of all, do you have any statistics on the counts of the activities, the services you're providing? Like how many hospital you know, the hospital, Milton Hospital's a big place, and there's a restaurant there, and you're responsible for making sure that's safe, I guess, right?
Yeah, so in our annual report, we do how many inspections, and yes, I don't have it in front of me now, but I know that Nellie goes, I think, 2 or 3 times a year, and if there's problems, then she'll go back and inspect more. You know, if there's issues with any certain establishment, she'll go more. She goes into the schools to check the food safety.
I mean, I wouldn't expect you to do what this outfit did as far as handing out like statistics, but they explained counts of like how much, what they were offering, what the services were, so you could see what the money was going for. You know, like with the copies, it's like, geez, you know, how many copies do you need? You know, maybe you need a lot of copies, and if you just said, I'm printing at 10,000 pages or whatever the count is, you know, we could say, geez, you need.
I think if flu season is the busiest, you know,
Yeah.
we are copying the flu fact sheets and the paperwork to, you know, get all that flu covered. So, I
So
mean,
there's an annual report where you have the other stuff.
Mike,
It's in the town reports.
Right here.
Town reports, okay.
so we
The
give.
second thing I wanted to ask was this, it says here on your green sheet, you've, $2,126,523 has been received in grants for emergency preparedness.
Emergency preparedness, yes. Yeah, so today I was at an emergency preparedness meeting, and so it's, 4B is the 28 communities surrounding Milton, and they receive about 500,000 a year. And we go to monthly meetings, and it's about emergency preparedness and preparing the Region 4B for any kind of emergencies. So it's their money, but
It's their money.
oh, it's their
That's what I
money.
was gonna say.
It's not our money.
You know, if I had $2 million
Yeah.
bucks, I might buy a copier, you know,
It's their money.
okay.
So, one of the things you want to do is increase your withdrawal limit on the revolving fund you have from 10,000 to 12,000. And I'm looking at that and wondering if you'll ever scrape the bottom of the barrel with only increasing it to 12,000. Because right now, in your vaccinations revolving fund, you started out the year with 20,000, and you took in 12 and you expended 6, and now you've got 27,000 in there. And if you can only take out, first of all, you didn't take out the 10,000 you were allowed to last year. And I don't know, maybe you can remind me if there's a stricture on the reasons you can take it out. But you didn't take out the full 10.
You're right.
So that builds up your I don't know, basement of inaccessible funds higher.
What happened last year is we have $10,000 to expend, and we had a payment that was supposed to be paid for Santa Fe for our vaccines. And I thought it was paid, and it was signed by Roxanne, our chairman, and it got lost in the shuffle. So at the end of the year, June 30th, I found it, and I was like, it was too late to submit it. So it was it was over $3,000, maybe close to $4,000. And it should have gone in, and it didn't. It got rolled over. So this year, I'm going to work more closely with Amy Dexter to make sure that we use, the money. So that bill wasn't paid, and we had to pay it this year.
Right, because also, I mean, I'm happy if you make money, but I don't think you're really supposed to be making money on the vaccinations. So looking at the revenue of 12 and the expense of 6 just kind of looked odd.
Yeah.
So most of it is that missed payment.
Yes.
But even if you change your withdrawal limit to 12, and you proceed along on a sort of a 12,000 a year volume,
I see, it's not going to decrease it. Yeah.
You'll never be able to decrease the balance. And I'm just wondering if there's something that revolving account would be authorized to spend money on, like a copy machine. If we expanded the withdrawal limit on that account, you just reach down in there and pull out a copy machine one time. You wouldn't always have to reach down $18,000 or whatever it is, but you could do that once. I mean, I kind of like that idea, because otherwise you just have the money sitting down there and you never get it out unless either your revenue declines, and you're giving away vaccinations, or anyway. So I think we ought to look at the idea of changing your withdrawal limit to a sufficient level where you can actually get to the bottom of your funds there, and we ought to see if check with your board, but I think probably you can use it for a copy machine. My guess. So, Lee Michael.
I have a question for each of you.
Sure.
For you, was on that vaccinations revolving fund, do you happen to know if the money that gets put in there is earmarked specifically for vaccinations, or it can be used for other things, or is this just a question for the board?
That's what I don't know.
Okay.
So it is only for vaccinations and nursing supplies and health-related programs. Yeah.
I
Right
could
now.
imagine how a copier could be related to that, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that would be good to ask the board. That's an interesting idea, Ted. And then, secondly, on the vaccines, do you happen to know what your wastage on vaccines is, and how much you get to use effectively versus how many you buy?
So all the vaccines I bought, I used. I did get some state vaccine, and I have about 40 doses left. But I usually use almost all of the vaccine, and at the end, when there's some left, I'll reach out to all the pediatricians and find out if they need any, and they didn't.
Great. That's
So-
fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm still
So,
giving it out if anybody wants vaccine. I am.
You could
Even,
have brought it tonight.
Yeah, even last week even when I get people walking in, and so in the end.
You
yeah.
gave me my vaccine, and there was flu in my house, and I didn't get it.
well, I do think that $20,000 in your revolving fund is a challenge for your board to figure out, what you're gonna do with it in the future, whether or not you're gonna start not charging for vaccinations or what you wanna do. But it's an asset, and it ought to be recognized and used. So maybe you can get back to us with what your board's thoughts are on that.
Yeah.
Be great. Any other questions for Carolyn? Oh, Jean?
I just wanted to say that I'm a big proponent of giving people the tools they need to do the jobs. And I don't think running around dealing with repair men and waiting for them to show up and waiting till they're finished and keeping your door locked so that you can go upstairs and use someone else's coffee is good for the town. I think we're paying you to do what you're supposed to do. I think we're paying you for training and so that you can be at the top of your profession. And I think that we diminish that when we make you run around and be a repairman.
Thank you, Jean, that's well said. Does anybody have another question for Carolyn? No? Well, good luck. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you about advertising costs, and it would be good to hear from your board what your intentions are on that. But thank you for coming in.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And
Okay.
can you check that expense line and find out for us, please? That information, copy it.
Okay, I want to move on to the Board of Assessors, Bob Bushway, and he's brought along one of the town's elected assessors, Jim Henderson, and gee, I don't know, one of you is going to have to stand. No, let's find a chair. Let's find a chair. Pull that up.
Is it just the assessor's budget, or is there another one?
Assessors. And there's a narrative.
I refuse to spend money to print out hundreds of pages of budgets in the wrong.
Yes, I have notes on, so you can have this one. Well, I don't know why. This one I have my notes all over.
Is this the same one?
Yeah. 349.
Okay, I'm just going to pull up your budget. Anyway, I want to welcome Bob Bushway. This is his first opportunity to come talk to us here at the Warrant Committee, because Bob is new to the town, and so he doesn't know any of us, except I've had. Oh, he might know you. You know everybody, Kevin. Yeah, can't keep up with it. Anyway. So you can see all our names. Some of us have been here for a while, some not. But yeah, we're delighted to have you here, and it's a real pleasure to have you tell me that growth is healthy in the town, and I can rely on some of that, and lots of good news there. So why don't you tell us a bit about the office.
Sure, thank you very much. I'll just briefly tell you a little bit about myself, because I've been here 5 months now, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jim for a little presentation. I came prior to Milton. I've been here since August. I was the principal assessor in the town of Hopkinton for 15 years. I was the president of the Middlesex County Assessors Association in 2008. Prior to Hopkinton, I was working for the city of Newton for 4 years, and then prior to that, I was a fee appraiser for several banks and so forth. So, quite a bit of real estate experience, and I'm happy to be in Milton. It's been a great town. The staff has been terrific. The dealings with Ted has been great. The board has been very, very, very helpful to me since I started on board. So this is a little bit intimidating for me. Prior, in Hopkinton, we had the town manager present the budget to the selectmen, so this is a little bit different for me, so bear with me.
Well, we'll make you as uncomfortable as we can.
Okay.
It's more fun
Through
for us
the
that
ringer.
way, yeah.
Sadly getting good at it.
Oh, well. Anyway, well, Jim, you have a presentation you want to give us
Yes, a
before
brief
we look at the
presentation.
budget? That'd be
and
great.
I have a handout, too. I think this is my first time doing this, too. I know Jeff usually takes the lead on this, so you want to just pass that around. So I'm kind of new to this. But one thing I found when I ran 3 years ago, and I still get the question, is it's like, what the heck do the assessors do? And I start to try to explain it. And after about 10 seconds, you can tell they say, gee, let's talk about the Patriots or the Red Sox or something else. Nobody wants to talk about taxes and the assessment. So with that in mind, I tried to come up with something that would be, kind of take the 10,000-foot view as to what we do and why it's important to the town that we have the office and the professionals in the office do what they do. The heading you'll see on this, it says Milton Assessor's Office, Keepers of the Tax Base. And that's pretty much succinctly defines what we do, because it's very, very critical and important that we keep the tax base in shape, so to speak, that it includes all the properties that it should, the properly assessed, et cetera, to be fair to all the taxpayers in Milton. And that's a very large responsibility. So, but why is keeping the tax base so important? Well, there's the basic model here, and I hate to bring back I did this like 10 minutes ago, is the tax levy. You have the tax levy, comes from the budget in the town as to what you need to run the town, and that's the process you're going through here. And there's other sources of revenue that come in, but 70% of the budget is funded from local property taxes. And when you arrive at the tax levy, which is the number after all the other funds that are accounted for, that gets divided by the tax base. And that's the total assessed value of all the property in the town. Tax levy divided by the tax base equals the tax rate, which for this year it's $13.94 per thousand. So this is where we come in. We have to keep this tax base correct. And how we do that is by assessing the property that's in the town and making sure that it's properly valued. So how do changes in the tax base affect your taxes? Well, new growth comes in. That's going to increase, I don't want to keep on holding that up. It increases the tax base, but also allows the town to increase and raise additional taxes from that new growth. So it allows more money for the budget. So in the end, it ends up being actually neutral, because if everything else being equal, with the new growth and the increase in the budget, we end up pretty much in the same base tax-wise. If tax-exempt property comes out of the tax base, out of the denominator, what ends up happening is that the tax rate is going to go up, and it increases taxes. So the Eustis estate was sold recently, I think $7 million. It hasn't come off the tax roll yet, but it will come off the tax roll. So that's $7 million in value. And at the tax rate, that's roughly $100,000 in tax revenue that's going to be gone. Now, people say, well, that's, they're a nonprofit, that's fine. But what ends up happening, that $100,000 has to be picked up by everybody else who's in the tax base. So it just doesn't go away. We have a closed-loop system with this. So people should be aware that that does happen. And it's also not only coming up with the overall assessment and keeping that correct, it's the individual assessments too. So if your assessment is 200,000 too high and yours is 200,000 too low, and the total assessment, is the same. But when you get your tax bill, if it's 200,000 at, almost $14 a thousand, you're gonna be paying $2,800 more in taxes, and you're gonna say, thank you, because I'm paying $2,800 less. So it's very important, not only getting the aggregate, but also that each individual property owner has a fair value that's fair in relation to all the other assessed properties in the town. So it's very critical. And we have, how many parcels? 8,000, 9,000? So there's a lot of properties that have to be included. We operate under, what laws of the do the assessor's office operate under? Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59. Assessment of local taxes. Now, when I joined the board, I went away for a week training and learned an awful lot, more than I ever thought I would want to know about local taxes. And I also the second year, took another course on commercial property assessments. So we are very into making sure that we're current and up to date as to what the assessment rules are. And it's just like, I'm a CPA by profession, I have to understand the tax laws. You have to understand the tax laws in this area. Because the bottom line, we want to make sure that we're fair to all the taxpayers in the town, property owners in the town, that we're handling their situation correctly in accordance with the law. The office is transparent, and we actively assist the taxpayers. Whenever I'm in there, Barbara and Nancy and Bob, always helping people. If they have an issue, we want to make sure we do it right. That's the bottom line, and we're fair to the taxpayers. We want all the taxpayers to have full faith in the assessor process in the assessor's office, because we actually represent them. This is a part of our mandate. How are the assessed values determined? Well, you just recently got your your tax bill in December 31st, which has the assessment for final assessment for fiscal 15. Now, people think, well, that's my value as of now, but the assessment is based on values as of January 1st, 2014. And you say, okay, that kind of makes sense. But that assessment is based on sales values coming from 2013. So we're almost 2 years behind, but there's really no other way to do it because you can't get a current assessment right now. You need to have data in order to work that data. All properties have to be valued based on full and fair value. Another situation too is that it would be great if we had every property sold as of December 31st, then we'd have the right assessment for every property in the town. But less than 5% of the property is sold every year. So we have to use techniques like CAMA, which is computer-assisted mass appraisal, which helps us in order to calculate the value of the properties in town, using statistical modeling, et cetera, to get the right valuations. The key is not so much to look at this is the right valuation as of this point in time, but everybody is, when you compare it to other assessments in the town, everybody is at a relatively same level. I'd love to say that it's a perfect science, but sometimes, there's some things that are a little bit outside the range. But as I said before, absent having a sale for every property in the town, it's very difficult to get to that point. Some interesting facts of Milton. Our tax base, 96% residential, 4% commercial. Unfortunately, not like Boston that can, has such a high commercial rate that it helps the taxpayers. The two largest taxpayers are tax-exempt entities, Fuller Village and Winter Valley. Those are the largest taxpayers in the town. And people say, well, they're tax-exempt, why do they pay taxes? Well, the property isn't used for the tax-exempt purposes. Curry, Milton Hospital, and Milton Academy, the property is used for the tax-exempt purposes. And those three end up being the three largest private property holders in the town. And if they were on the tax rolls, everybody's tax bill would basically be affected by 10%. So roughly 10% of your tax bill is going to cover what doesn't come in from those entities. And we are in the top 11% of the state in average property tax bill. part of that, I think, is because we have such a low commercial base. And that's kind of my 2 or 3 minute presentation on what we do. If you want to throw out some questions,
Sure.
Bob will answer them.
Well, that's fair. He's
No,
he's the
we'll both
professional, and you're the volunteer like the rest of us at the table. Lee Michael.
Thanks. 2 questions. On the 96% residential, 4% commercial, on the spectrum of towns that you understand in Massachusetts, where do we fall in terms of what percentage is residential versus commercial?
We're very high, Milton is very high residentially weighted. Hopkinton, for example, was 85% residential.
85?
We had EMC, which is about 6% of my whole tax base, so they were a large chunk of the value, even though most of the suburban towns are around 80%, 85%. So Milton is extremely high on the residential side.
I don't know what Boston's number, but it's...
Yeah, they're probably 60.
I wouldn't compare Milton to Boston
Yeah,
per
but I
se,
just-
but I'm not looking to build Boston here. Okay, thank you. And then the second question is on voluntary taxes that are sometimes paid by tax-exempt organizations. I know that Boston and some other towns have looked at asking educational institutions to kick in some money. There's obviously plenty of ambulances and fire runs going to Curry College and other places. Have we looked at that option for Milton and had conversations there?
Yes, actually, I'm on the pilot committee, and we do have, Curry does make some payments in lieu of taxes. The agreement that they have, I think they pay close to $60,000 a year, plus they've made other payments for other over the years, other amounts in sponsoring certain things for the town. So I'm not saying that they were without assisting the town. It's just that when you look at the numbers, like you said, the police calls, I think they're the #1 police call in the town, goes there.
So when you said that the tax bill could potentially be decreased by 10% if those 3 private properties were to be fully taxed at their valuation, were you already including the amounts that were paid in lieu of taxes?
Pretty much so, yeah. I mean, in relation to what it would be, if they were taxed, I think the last time I looked at it would be about $7 million we'd raise. So when you look at 50, 60,000 in relation to 7 million, it's a relatively small amount.
Thanks.
And I mean, the pilot committee, it's basically came to the same conclusion that the pilot committee did in 96 and 97, which is to propose coming up with a 25% payment in lieu of taxes, and I don't know where that's going to go. But I think in these times, because they are consuming services, should be participation.
Do you happen to know if BIDMC Boston makes a payment in lieu of taxes to Boston?
Yes, they do.
I would think that that would give us a great argument to say that BIDMC Milton needs to make a similar payment to our town.
But it's strange what has happened, I don't know if you've read some articles, is that people were involved and engaged in that process of the pilot payment as long as Mayor Menino was in, and it seems like once he's gone, now he's deceased, but obviously, but a lot of these institutions are reneging on that, so where it will go, I don't know.
Okay.
You know, the whole subject of payments in lieu of taxes is interesting. My understanding of the Boston situation is that generally the hospitals, the medical facilities were pretty good about it, and higher education wasn't too bad, but
yes,
everybody else was struggling to meet essentially a new burden on a very thin,
Yep.
line line for them. So I'm not sure how that would work out here. I don't think it's anything we can depend on for an immediate $7 million infusion. But at any rate, so if I did my math correctly just now, the base is about $900 million for the town.
Base, the assessed base?
the assessed value of all taxable property, is that right?
I think it's 4 to 5 million, isn't it?
The total value of the town is about 4.7 billion.
Billion.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, then I need to revisit my math. At $14 times about the 65 million that we take in. So it's about 4.7 billion. And that includes the value of the nonprofits?
No.
No.
That's the
Okay.
tax
Taxable.
base.
The tax
Taxable.
base, okay. So that's a lot to keep track of. So one of the things that you do every 9 or 10 years is the in-depth assessment that costs the town, this time, is costing the town $345,000. And we're making the last payment in fiscal year 16 of $115,000. And that's a process, and that's a revaluation of the entire town, right down to home visits and counting closets in your bathrooms. So how's that going?
It's going great. Patriot Properties has the contract. They've done about they've visited about 2/3 of the property in town, and, by this time next year, they will have wrapped it up. So I monitor and send out the crews in different neighborhoods. So this major reval is what they call a full measuring list, which is done every 9 years. That's why it's a significant amount of money, because there's a lot of people involved as far as going out and actually doing the inspections. On the interim years, the cost of the town is significantly less because they're not out knocking on doors as often, so. But the program's going quite well.
Great. Now, in the interim years, that's about every 3 years, there is also a partial survey done, or how does that work?
Yeah, every 3 years, it's a full revaluation where Department of Revenue comes out and visits the town, visits the assessor's office, and requires various reports from the town, make sure that we are taxing at full and fair cash value. And we need to, that's a state mandate, so in order to get the values certified, we need to, hit certain standards with the Department of Revenue.
But you also hire someone to help you get those standards? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
And is that Patriot?
Traditionally, it's been Patriot Properties, yes. They're probably the largest contractor in the state that performs these services.
Do they have any competition?
Yes.
And would you consider, when's the last time you got bids? Do you know?
I think we get bids we
Every
put it
time,
out for
every
bid,
3
yes.
years.
Yeah, every 3
Every time.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a convenient, there's 3 good-sized outfits in the state, Patriot, Vision, and State Cama. Patriot is in my opinion, I've worked with them in other communities, very reliable, and they also, not only do they have consultants, but they supply the software as well, so it's a pretty seamless approach. And it's to do a conversion, it's a little arduous, and unless you're having an issue with the vendor that you currently have, it's typically not worth it.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. So on the off years, as it were, what do you imagine our expenses going to be for Patriot?
Probably in the neighborhood, I haven't gotten beyond FY16 looking at it
Right.
yet, and I'd have to see what Jeff, my predecessor, was doing, but I would, think it would be considerably less, probably somewhere in the range of $25,000, just to kind of keep up with building permit inspections. It's fairly significant. We're up over 1,000 every year. Building permits are up 51% since 2009. I did a little study. So there's a lot more properties that we need to consistently go out and visit. If we don't, then we stand chances of perhaps not picking up added growth to the town, which is added to the tax base. So and above all else, we want to make sure that the taxes, everybody's paying their fair share. So if your neighbor puts on a large addition, that should be reflected in the assessed value. We need to go out and constantly pick those improvements up.
So every time a building permit is issued, then your office follows up on it to see what the value
Sure.
achieved is really?
Any improvement to the property is, needs to be up, we constantly update our records, so if the square footage increases, or somebody puts in a new kitchen or finishes the basement, things of that nature, we want to make sure that that's reflected in their assessed value. So it's a lot of...
So do you rely on the building department?
Yes, they have a software program that our staff goes in and puts into our camera system that Jim was talking about, and that triggers us to go out and do the inspection.
Great. So maybe we should look at your budget since you're here.
I'm just curious, how many people here have gone to the website and look at property values, or their own property values, and comparing it? About half. I was kind of surprised. I thought it might be less than that even, because I've talked to people, they say, how do I get my assessment? I just, and there it is, and not too many people know. So.
Very sharp group here.
No, it's actually, it's a great resource if you're in the market looking for a house, because you can get much more information out of that than often from the realtor's disclosures and information. You can get a much better idea of floor plans and actual square footage. So it's a great resource. Does that have to be? You put that in quite a while back? I don't know.
I believe it's been in place. I mean, I don't have a history
Is it
here,
due
but
for an
it's-
overhaul or anything like that?
I mean,
It's part of Patriot.
Patriot Properties maintains it.
Okay.
It's called WebPro, and, they download our data, and they have all the sketches, digital photos. It's a real nice service, and it's...
That's great.
It's part of the budget, but it's also a great service to the community. Cuts down on a lot of the foot traffic, appraisers, attorneys, taxpayers used to have to come into the office to get a property record card. Now they can just go on the website and pick it up.
No, it's nice. So, as I mentioned before, I don't know how much we can afford this year above contractual obligations for salary and wages and contracts. But if there is a small amount, then we have your level service request, and so we want to focus on the difference there, and it is a small difference, but we ought to know, we want to make sure we understand what you're asking for. And it's about, well, it's the difference between $12,903 and $10,303, so
Right.
$2,600. And let's see, so basically, based on your narrative, we should find it in training, education, which was 0 in 14, and jumps up to 2,200 in the level service request. And the narrative has a nice breakdown on what that might be used for. What would you take it out of if we weren't able to do that for you?
Well, I'm not sure. I was looking at the prior budgets, and, I mean, I'm a pretty big advocate of training and continuing education.
Yeah.
I have to keep up 45 hours every 3 years for my certification. And, I'd like to send the staff out to keep up with the laws that change constantly, and just to go to workshops, there's clerks' meetings. And they, quite frankly, I don't think we're attending those on a frequent basis. Jim mentioned he went out to, UMass has a school, assesses school every August for a week. These are all great resources where not only are you getting educational credits, but you're also talking to other assessors and, bouncing ideas off of them. Like a lot of you probably go to conventions and workshops, and just the communication that you have with the other professionals can be a great benefit. So, ever since I was involved with Middlesex County workshops, I'd like to continue that, and part of that is the education.
Makes sense to me. So I did notice, though, that your line for professional services is interesting. 14, you had a budget of $3,500 for it. You spent about $3, and your appropriation in 15 is $5,600. And you're continuing that level for, in your budget request.
Right.
For 16. And I'm just kind of wondering, what is that, and do you need 5,600 of it if you only spent 3,000 actually in 14, the year just finished?
Right. So what I understand, and Nancy in the office has been a big help me kind of segregate these expenses, but a large chunk of that is this Zobrio software, which I believe was spoken of earlier, and it's basically helps us run the office. It's the two assistants in the office run the software, and it's an annual maintenance fee. Software support also covers data conversions. When I take my Patriot Camus program, I have to run it through the Zobrio billing system in order for them to convert my data into an actual tax bill. So it's $1,500 every time they do a conversion, and we do 2 billings a year, so there's $3,000 of it right there. And then there's some additional fees for the software support that Zobrio charges.
Okay, so one of the things we're trying to accomplish this year is to protect people's contracts from any sort of leveling necessities. So if you actually have a contract for this, and it's going to cost you $3,000 or $4,000, whatever it is, per year, it would be good to identify that instead of just having it under professional services, because generally those types of things go up, and if the town needs to ask you for a level dollar general expense line, you want that to be protected, so that you can continue doing business, even if you don't have as many office supplies as you might like. But so that would be good. I don't think it's going to be, in the context of this budget, would be an issue this year maybe, but you certainly want to be able to identify what you are paying contractually for those services. Kevin?
Yeah, I was the subcommittee chair for Bob's department, and we talked about this, and in his prior budgets, I mean in Jeff's budgets, he had as much as 19,000 in that line, so they have been moving some of that to the bottom contractual number on the page, so
Okay.
just moving the rest wouldn't be. Wouldn't be much of a problem.
So there's 10,580 in software support here.
Right.
due to go up to 11,350. This is what we're trying to protect. If you have, if that other line of professional services is actually contracts, it should be down below.
Right, okay.
Okay?
I did meet with Amy Dexter to try to segregate, you know, some of, you know, drill down a little bit and isolate some of those expenses, so we can keep doing that going
Well, no, it's good. You have the 115,000 and the 11,000 there for your basic. I mean, that is your basic web page and Patriots setup that's covered on that, right?
Yes.
But if there's more that belongs down there, then we should put it down there. No, I was just thinking that if we weren't able to award level service dollars, that you might have some wiggle room there in terms of training and that professional services line to maybe get some training accomplished.
Right.
So great. Any questions? Phil?
Yeah, I'm looking at your personnel services line, and I must be missing something here. You're looking for an increase of about 11,600. And if you look under your salary and wage detail, well, I guess the first question I have is you have $4,800 here for elected board in fiscal year 16, but not in any prior year. Is this a new expenditure?
Not that I know of.
No.
So it should be an expenditure under the prior year budgets as well.
Yes.
Now, the chief appraiser salary looks to be the same as it was before. And we see small increases in the admin clerk and the senior clerk. So I'm trying to figure out where the $11,600 is.
I might be able to help you.
Okay. Am I correct that the chief appraiser salary, it's the same rate as it was in July of
No,
15?
When it was vacant in 15, it was about 91,000. And in 16, it's 94.9.
So this information here is incorrect then on July 1, 2015, because it lists the same weekly rate.
That's correct, actually. It's,
And that holds true for the others.
So we need corrected information to know what the increase is in that salary item, and whether that accounts for the $11,600 increase in the total personnel services.
thanks.
Did Jeff have accumulated compensated time that had to be paid?
He had buyback time. I know last year there was, I want to say 20.
But that would have been last year's budget, not this year's.
Yeah.
That would have inflated last year's budget, but it doesn't appear in here, so I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, and Phil, that money for
It's-
the
it's
assessors
actually- it's
wasn't
right-
last year's budget. It wasn't last year's budget, Phil.
If you look at Schedule A, under fiscal year 15, that $20,433
Right.
buyback one time, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Well,
I did the math, that comes to the 11,000 when we look at the different salaries. That's the number,
What comes to 11,000?
the difference in the salaries.
In the chief assessor's salary alone?
And the other two, all three.
Well, we'll get some corrected information. We'll-
okay, we do have the steps, we do have the charts, we can do the math. But it's nice if somebody does it for us, so. Okay, great. So, you'll get back to us on that
Yes.
question? Okay. Great, thank you. Anything else? Come on, Kevin.
No, I was very impressed.
No, it's-
Bob and I
it's-
spoke, and I said I was here to help him.
Well, it is a pretty straightforward budget, aside from the contractual services that are large. And in fiscal year 17, I don't think there's any Patriot Place contractual services involved. And then I think it'll kick up again in 19. You have 2 years off after this.
Right,
big
every
one.
every 3 years.
So then all of a sudden in 19, there's a charge, and
Mhm.
in a perfect world, you might sort of try and smooth it out and budget it, but we don't have any good mechanism for that, so it's good to be aware of what that number will be when it comes down the pike.
I could take a look at that going forward and maybe talk to Patriot or some other vendors about maybe trying to smooth it out on an annual basis. Yeah.
Worth a conversation, definitely.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both for coming in and
Thank you.
cluing us up.
Thanks, Bob.
That's great.
Thanks, Karen.
Hopefully you guys warmed down for me. I got a little bit of a problem. I blew up my desktop, and my budget was on the desktop, so if anybody has a paper copy, I'd appreciate it.
I might have one.
Thanks.
You know what?
I got one.
Are we all set?
Yeah, all set. All right, we'll start off with some good news. We just refied one of the school bonds. It was on a 10-year call. We had 10 bids on it. The winning bid, true interest cost was 1.428868. Coupon rates now are down to 2%. They were 5%. So that's going to save the town $1,084,000 over the next 10 years.
So you're getting way ahead of me here.
So that's the good news.
Okay. Does everybody know Jim McAuliffe?
The town treasurer?
Town treasurer. Anyway, I was able to send all that debt service out to the
Okay.
committee. And I just wanted to grab, I think it's this one here. Nope, not that one. Maybe it's the summary, yes, the summary. Because this really is good news, and it affects this committee directly, because one of the new articles, I think, is partially in response to this development here. But if you go to the bottom down here, it will tell you a total of $1,083,905 in savings over the remaining 10 years of the issue. So that's fabulous to be able to take advantage of our AAA rating and reposition the remaining bond. That was a school building bond,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, this is the second bond we refunded. We did one last year, and we saved, it was 1.3 million. So I mean, we saved 2.4 million on the school building project, just by refunding the bonds. And that goes directly back to the taxpayers. That's not something that's savings for the, money for next year. That's money that's going directly back to the taxpayers.
Right.
So when
Right.
people come in to beat me up about their tax bill, I can say, listen, this is what I saved you. It could be worse.
How's that work, Jim?
Not very well, as you know.
I never tried that one.
Anyway, it is timely, because who knows how long that these rates will stay.
Yeah, there's only one bond left, the library bond, that comes up in 17. If the rates are low at that point, we can also recall that one.
So it's not callable until then?
Yeah, in 2017.
All right. Anyway, so among other things, Jim arranges for our bonding, and primarily collects all the tax revenue for the town as well. So I want to take a quick look at debt service after we look at your budget, so while you're here, while we have you. But let's take a look at your budget first. Two revisions. Well, let's hope I get the right one. Okay, now, we don't have a narrative from you.
No, I mean, I gave you the same narrative the last 5 years in a row. It's,
Oh, there's something a little different this year.
It's not a whole lot there. It's
Your
bills, postage, envelopes,
There's
and
not much
records.
Now you get parking tickets, right?
Well, I'll be acquiring parking tickets in a few weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a piece of that, it's actually, I don't think it is here. That's coming out of the accountant's budget.
Okay, so it's in your revised budget that we
Yeah.
have. Okay?
Yeah, I don't-
And it's actually, that
It may
piece
not
of
be.
it is this line
Oh,
here.
there it is, yeah, 13,500.
Contractual,
Yeah.
13,500.
That's the parking ticket company they use out of Terrytown, New York, called Complis. And that's a contract the accounting department signed. I'm looking into next year, going with our deputy collector. I think he could probably do it for cheaper than what this company does, and what they get for the money. I know a lot of other towns, out of Treasure School, one of the deputy collectors brought up the fact that he also does this kind of work. So I asked our deputy collector, and he said he'd do it, and I'm sure I can beat him down to a better price than this.
So, my understanding of this when it was in the central business office
Yeah,
was that if you had a lot of parking tickets that got collected, then the fee was higher. So it was hard to know how to budget for this item, because if you had a lot of activity, then it was a bigger bill. In fact, one year, I think, or recently, it was as much as $19,000 was budgeted for this activity. Do we have any idea? And then clearly, we only spent about $13,500 last year, and that's why
I think
this is
a contract that they have. I don't know anything about it at this point.
contract, but it's variable based on volume of parking tickets.
See, I have no.
Tickets issued?
As far as the ins and outs of this, we're not getting it for another 2 weeks, so I don't know anything about it. What I did do, though, is hire the parking clerk upstairs to work on this. So we should have a good feeling for it.
Right, but financially, the higher volume of parking tickets that is handled by through this contract,
Yeah,
the more money you will pay.
yeah. I don't know what they supply. I haven't even touched the ins and outs of the shed. I'm getting parking tickets, I'm getting trash tickets, I'm getting recycling bins. Treasurer's office is now gonna become a retail operation in the next few weeks. So it's more like one-stop shopping. So the foot traffic's gonna pick up quite a bit with the same staff.
You got a coffee machine coming in?
No, I got a coffee machine last year. I'm good with that.
Nothing for your clients, jeez. So in terms of personnel, though, is there a change in?
It is a big change. My assistant treasurer is retiring on Friday. And there's a line in the Schedule D on her sick time buyback, $11,925. She's also going to be on vacation until, I believe it's March 6th. The new person's not going to start. I think DPW is going to give us the new person on February 2nd, so we'll save a week. There's also going to be some savings in the salary line, but that has yet to be determined. We don't know what the rate the new person is going to come down at. So that should drop a bit. But once we get everybody in place, we'll know what the salary's gonna be for next year. But that salary line should drop next year, except for the 11,000 that we owe Diane, who's leaving us.
So she's leaving, and,
And Joyce Demetko is taking her position.
okay, thank you.
And Kathleen O'Donnell is gonna be taking Joyce's position.
And Kathleen has a lot of experience with the new activities that
Yeah.
will be based in your office now.
Yeah, right now she does the parking and the
Right.
tickets. I mean, the trash tickets.
And it does make sense to, I mean, to my mind, it made sense to bring down some of that activity to the first floor for retail traffic, rather than having people run upstairs to the,
And a lot of them are coming back down, getting a voucher, running back up, and it was ticking off the residents of the town. I mean, those vouchers are sort of a weird idea to begin with.
well, if you don't need a trash sticker, you could always pay online for some of these things.
Oh, yeah, most stuff's paid online.
But I imagine if you come in determined to get something done, and then you have to run from pillar to post and back again, then
Well, what's worse
You might
is,
be irritated.
if you go to the assessor's office and you want a property card, it's $1, and if you come down to my office to get a voucher, which probably costs a dime to make, to go back down the hall to give them a voucher for $1.
Really?
Yeah, it's an antiquated, not a very good system. They try to talk the
So-
auditors out of doing it this way, but they thought it was a good,
Is that because the assessor can't take cash?
yeah. And they do about 5 property cards a month, it's $5 in cash. So it's not a,
Doesn't Zobrio, I mean, he's paying for the Zobrio cash management system over there. Wouldn't that allow him to
you would think.
take cash? Okay, I know that the auditors and the, and also the Department of Revenue like to have cash centralized and not in, a lot of little fiefdoms, and basically that makes sense, but for that kind of volume, it's crazy, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's $5 a month with them, and the bigger bills are with the building department. A lot of the builders come in with cash, and they come down and get a voucher, and you're talking hundreds of dollars that they're shelling out, opposed to $5.
So it's a good thing that they're right upstairs from us,
Yes, they
right?
can come right down.
Instead of, okay, but anyway, you will, that 13,500, which was added to your budget, because it came over from the central business office, is,
That's coming out of central business office's budget.
right, and that's fine, but that budget had a $19,000 line item.
I'll take
for
the
that.
19,000.
Yeah, you'll take it. Anyway, the experience would indicate that 13,500
Yeah,
should cover it.
I think there's a year left on that contract, and then we can see if we can get it done cheaper.
Okay, great. All right, so just an overlook on your Schedule A. I wasn't quite sure why these numbers were different. And $302, $620. Okay. They should be the same. I don't know why one didn't. Yeah, no, this will have to be fixed because this isn't, should be 302, 620. I don't know. I think perhaps maybe when there was a revision, I don't know. I don't know why it's different.
I know on the level dollar line, it is 302.
Right.
620.
And this is linked to the sheet. It should be linked to. and this is not linked, it's just plugged in, so. At any rate, that's fine. So again, we want to see what is the difference between your $85,000 and your $83,000 worth of general expenses. So what are you asking us for?
A little bit
Above
more
and beyond.
postage, as usual. We have
Okay.
a lot of new buildings in town. Sullivan Building down on Elliott Street. There's a few more houses coming online, which are gonna add to more tax bills, more excise tax bills. So every house that comes on is gonna generate another few dollars worth of postage each year.
See, we thought we finally got you up there last year.
Yeah, we got
Okay.
close.
But you actually spent more in 14 than is budgeted for you in 15. And in 14, you had a little help from the reserve fund to
Yeah, I've
meet
had,
your
since I've been
postage
here,
bill.
I've
So-
had to get a reserve fund transfer for the extra postage.
Well, what we're trying to do is avoid that situation where you have to come to us for postage.
Yeah.
So,
mean, that's a
for
fixed
one thing, the
cost,
Department
isn't
of Revenue really didn't like it. Because it's foreseeable that
Yeah.
you would need the postage, so we should be budgeting for it. So this is a major reason when it comes to looking at, can we do something above and beyond contractual levels? Well, one of the things that we maybe really ought to be looking at is your postage line. And I'd say that's about the difference, right? In fact, that is the difference.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
2,100.
Okay, you got the 2,600 for equipment rental.
That's the NeoPost postage machine in our office. It
Okay,
services the whole town.
so you have to have it.
Yeah, it's a contract.
So the contract-
Okay, so it should be,
the contract line.
okay, yeah, it should be down. We should be moving it to a contractual thing, because, and protecting it, because you haven't accounted for it in your level dollar, and if we're funding on a level dollar basis, all of a sudden, you don't have the $2,600 you need for the postage machine, and nobody gets their tax bills. and
Well,
the
that
town
postage
stops
machine,
functioning.
All the tax bills now, we farm out to mass mailers,
Okay.
and they bill us for postage. With the NeoPost machine, we use that for all the vendor checks that go out. Anybody in the selectman's office, the clerk's office, if they have any mail going out, the census, they'll run it through that machine, and then they'll reimburse my department for postage. So it's the one postage machine in the entire town hall that
Okay.
everybody uses.
Still need to be protected.
So now, the professional service line is also jumping around a little bit here. You had 11,000 appropriated for it in 15, but in 14 you only spent 7,800.
Yeah, we had a light year on tax title this year. I
Okay.
only filed 10 tax liens for the entire town,
Wow.
which usually you're doing 25, 30. But a lot of people paid up the taxes, and we started something different the last couple of years, where once we put a tax title on somebody's property, I'll immediately subsequent the taxes for that year also onto it. That way somebody's not coming in and paying the tax title off for this year, going back to the tax title the next year. So what they'll do is, if they come in and they pay it off now, they're paying it off last year, this year, and I won't have to file a tax title on them for another 2 years. So it's cut down the amount of tax titles by subsequent things quicker.
By 50% almost.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah, so it's worked,
So that's why I only did 10 instead of 20.
yeah.
No, not really.
Not quite.
Yeah, well,
But
we had a good year.
it's good.
It's a good
Come on.
one.
Yeah, it's,
Jim's talking about new ones.
Yeah, these are the new
Subsequent
ones.
Right,
are
okay.
additional to
Right.
existing.
Okay.
yeah, but what you do is you immediately subsequent every year. Because even the ones that are in tax title now, a lot of them will pay it off, and they'll pay off what's in tax title, but leave the current taxes there. And then you're putting right back in tax title next year. If you subsequent it right over, that money, if they pay the tax title off, you've got that year, you're not gonna see them for another 2 years, if you had to file another tax title. I mean, there's a lot of repeat business in tax title.
That's a good thing.
The same old suspects, the usual
Yes.
suspects.
Yes.
Okay.
They're known to the authorities.
All right. So, okay, so in 15, for that professional service, which covers your tax titles, you have 11,000, you had 11,000. For your level service, you have 8. And then for your level dollar, you're back up to 11. So I know it's semantics, but level service, the intention of level service is what do you need?
Yeah.
What do you need to run your department? And you have less in there than you do in the level dollars. So,
It should be
know.
reversed.
Um,
It should be reversed.
Yeah.
so I'm thinking they maybe ought to be reversed, which would then give you the money to drop in, to cover the Pitney Bowes machine, the Neopost machine.
Yeah, and
So-
that could be the difference.
Yeah, it's
I don't know how zero.
it's roughly. Anyway, I think we need to play with that. I mean, I understand here, obviously in 16, level service says you need $11,000 for your forms, because look what you spent on them in 14. You spent almost 11,000.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, that's another fixed cost. I mean,
Right. Year 15 appropriation, geez, we might have shorted you on that one. That's 7,500. So the 11,000 makes sense, and the level dollar of 7,500. Yeah, well, we did ask you to see if you could do that, but yeah, no, I think we might want to reverse a couple of these numbers. We'll have to hold you to the same bottom line, but just to sort of rationalize the expenses
Yeah.
within those columns, I think it would make sense to change some of those around.
Yeah, with the forms, we've farmed them out. Over the years, they sort of fell into different boxes. Right now, I have Mass Mail sending out all the tax bills. We call them, we send the file over, they send it out, and they charge 15 cents per bill to, print stuff and get out. So, I mean, it was break even, giving it all to them.
Mm-hmm.
Before, we were printing them in our office. We were ordering buying the forms, printing them in the office, burning up printers. Then they'd come, they'd pick them up, they'd bring them down to the mailing house, and then stuff them there. We found it's just a lot easier to call them up saying, here it comes, get it out tomorrow. And we also have to
Sounds
deal
great.
with them. On envelopes, they were actually cheaper than Mass Correctional buying envelopes. They were actually cheaper than convicts printing our envelopes. So I gave them all that business, and they'll also store the envelopes at Mass Mills for us. We used to store them upstairs where Bill Ritchie's office is, and seeing though Bill needed an office, we couldn't store them there anymore. We had no place to store envelopes, so Mass Mail has taken that responsibility also.
There's lots of room in here.
Well, we actually put them down here, and the humidity on this floor is so humid, it self-seals some of the envelopes. So
Great.
Mass Mail now stores them for us.
No, I think that's great. Now, is a relationship like that going to prevent you from moving to more of a digital service, if that was possible in the future?
What do you mean by digital service?
Sending people their tax bills on email?
Oh, emailing? Oh, no, you can also do that.
You can also do that.
Yeah.
Is that so is that a duplicate to?
Yeah, I mean, we send them what we send them. I mean, they're working on a bill checkoff. If you don't want your bill, you could opt out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's paid by escrow. But they still haven't perfected that system. Out of Treasury School, they said they were looking into these options, but nothing's available at the moment.
You know, because, I mean, eventually paper will disappear and we'll be getting our tax bills, you know, in our email.
Hopefully.
You know, on that wonderful day, you know, in December. Okay.
Dead then.
Yeah, but I'll still handle it.
Careful what you wish for. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Jim on his budget? We're going to move on to debt service. That's all right. Nope. Great. We're going to move. So last year, we had some excitement with debt service in our budget because our debt service number went up dramatically in February from what we'd been expecting it. So I'm really glad that this year we're not anticipating any activity in February.
No, and I think the next bonding we're gonna do is August of 16.
Uh-huh.
They're looking at doing some bans to Lead Point.
Okay.
And the water department, well, DPW must get going on the projects they have in line. And they're getting us a schedule, hopefully soon, on when they're gonna do these borrowings. But I think it's gonna be some before the end of this year, which will run into next year. But they're bans, so that it's not gonna be a huge interest charge.
Okay, so what we have here is, let's see if I can get out both of them. Okay, so earlier this fall, I got a breakdown on interest and maturing debt for fiscal year 16. It wasn't final, but it did break things down between exempt debt and non-exempt debt. And to the best of my ability, I figured that the non-exempt debt was that we have to pay for, the general fund has to pay for, was going to be $1,460,000. So it was a little disappointing to get this, which told me right off the bat that it was going to be more money. It was going to be, point of fact, $1,479,000. You know, not a ton, $19,000, but kind of made me wonder where it came from. So now, as far as the total debt service goes compared to last October, the total debt service, if I add up, okay, sorry, this needs a little more intro because I just sent this out to you guys, what, last night? So you may not have. So this is a large spreadsheet, and it goes out for all the fiscal years that the bonds are alive, payable, and for all the different items. And and they're all arranged by issue dates. So these are bonds from 11, 9, 12, 14, etc. Anyway, so the first group is all the stuff that is non-exempt debt. The second group is the exempt debt, and you add the debt service for both of these together, you have our total debt service, which is $4,028,000. That's better than it looked like in October. In October, it was $4,090,000. And the reason is half a year's worth of the refinancing on the non-exempt debt. On the exempt debt, on that school bond. So that's what it is there. So if you look at it more closely, our total is better by $62,000. That's because the exempt is $80,000 better than it was, and the non-exempt is $19,000 worse. I'm not sure why. I understand why the exempt debt got cheaper, the debt service on that. I'm not sure why the non-exempt debt got marginally more expensive. But I'm going to chase Jim and Lisa down on that.
Yeah, it probably has to do with a coupon rate going up and down. Is it, if you look at the bonds, this school bond now, it's a flat 2% for the next 10 years.
Oh, yeah, but I'm looking at not school bonds.
But even the not-school bonds, every issuing coupons on a flat rate in a lot of them. A lot of them will start with a teaser rate of 2%, and they'll go up to 3, 4, then they'll come down again. So it depends what year you're in on each individual bond. They could have a variable floating rate on each from year to year.
Yeah. No, it was just, I mean, on this analysis, on the October analysis, one of the issues was generating $615,987 worth of debt service, and on the new analysis, it's generating exactly $10,000 more. Okay, I don't know. It just seems odd, so I
Yeah, just give me the numbers that
Yeah,
you
no,
question. I have Lisa coming in tomorrow to pick up the bonds, and I can run it through her.
tomorrow,
Yeah, and she's coming at 2:30.
2:30. Okay.
Like,
Nothing like FaceTime for getting these questions answered. Anyway, no, that'd be great. I'll send this to you before, though.
Okay.
So that'd be great. But anyway, it's good news for non-exempt debt. Not so good news for putting a little more pressure on our general fund by $19,000 compared to what I had. And we'll figure that out. So I don't know. I sent you about 6 different spreadsheets on the most recent bond issue.
Yeah.
Or the refinancing of the school bond, and this stuff here. This is worth looking at simply because it tells you what.
I'll show you one.
It tells you
different issues
what we've been,
dropping off.
what do we typically put out to bond? Surface drains. A lot of surface drains. Then you get to something like wind turbines, and you go, really? Anyway, that's another story. We'll have to ask the selectmen about that someday.
A lot of trucks.
Fire trucks, a lot of trucks. This item here, Pickens, that's the firefighter who...
They're doing an override on that this year.
Yep, exactly.
That's actually, should be an easy override to get through, because it'll save the town money by doing it that way. Because you're not going to be paying interest
yeah.
costs.
No, should be a no-brainer for anybody once it's properly explained. And anyway, so this is just good. You can see, a backup generator now. Okay, that was the DPW.
Ductwork.
High school ductwork. This was unfortunate, but there it is.
That was value engineered to begin with.
Roads, not enough for roads. A little bit for cemetery roads. The roads in the cemetery, they have to be repaved once in a while. Anyway, so it'll give you a good idea to see what's out there. So,
Where'd you get that, Ted?
I got it from Jim
Lisa, and I forwarded it on
2
to
days
Ted.
ago.
Lisa?
Yeah.
I sent it to you.
Yeah, it was too big to print.
I'm going to a new printer.
For the warrant committee. Anyway.
Talk to the Board of Health. Make a deal.
I'll be printing for everybody for 3 days.
So, does anybody have any questions for Jim on debt service, or where we're going with it, or how it gets put together?
I know that the Board of Selectmen came up with a formula where they want to stick to lose 1.9% a year. So they figure the next bonding they want to do is in August of 16. So this year, we're going to ban the water projects that were voted in October. The new water tanks to level off the water service, and about $5 million worth there. So we're going to ban that until 16, and then also some of the capital expenses from last year. As that comes up, they're going to also ban that. And they'll do short-term borrowings up to the point where you have enough to do a long-term bond.
So this, sorry, Steve. Be right with you. So this particular debt service schedule doesn't show any bans or
It doesn't show any
bond
bans.
anticipatory notes. And you're talking about the need for some of those
Yeah.
through fiscal year 16. Is there any way you can get me
We're
an
hoping to get
estimate
some
on-
numbers, but I have to get Joe Lynch to give me a cash flow on when he's going to need the money. And I think he'll need some before the end of this year, and we'll float them into next year. If we could put them off to next year, we could put that cost into 16, which would be...
Okay, well, that's great, but we're looking at 16 right now.
No, but I'm talking, if we borrow them after July 1st, we can get that for a year, that ban for a year, and we won't incur those till 17.
Okay.
So we don't know at this point when he's gonna need that money, but I think he's gonna need some of it this fiscal year.
Okay, because,
But we may be able to bond that out to 17.
right, well, if you can chase Joe on getting me a possible band dollar number
Yeah,
for fiscal year 16, that would be great.
yeah, I was talking to Lisa today on that, and she said, we just need a cash flow statement on when he's gonna need this money, so we can put a plan together.
Take over, Steve.
And can we structure those so that if 18 months is a long time,
Yeah,
and interest rates could jump up
Yeah.
before then, and if you're locked in under the terms of a ban, that you're stuck, unable to refund them or to get out of them. You know, and you see we've got bans issued, we
Yeah.
start to see interest rates creeping up quickly, we wanna be able to get out of those bans and into the longer term stuff, so that it doesn't cost us money.
yeah, they don't wanna do another bonding till August 16. You know, that's...
So what?
I know.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's-
mean, if the things are going north,
Yeah.
and you've got those expenses looking in the face, you go anyway, whether you'd like to or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that, but this is the selectmen's plan and the town accountant's plan that it fits into their 1.9% figure they came up with. I mean, it's an arbitrary number,
Yeah.
but that's what their plan's looking like right now.
Okay, the 1.9% number Jim's talking about is 1.9% of our tax revenue is being allocated to debt service for non-exempt debt. And last year, we exceeded that by quite a bit, and this year, we look to be exceeding it, well, by 62,000 plus the 19 that I just got news on, so about $80,000 greater than 1.9%, or 1.9% target. Is the 1.9% sufficient for the needs of this community? Probably not. But then you would have to say, okay, instead of 1.4 million a year on debt service, we'd like to spend $2 million a year on debt service. Well, where are you gonna get that $600,000 on a yearly basis? I think probably that is, I mean, it's not a very sexy thing for an override, but it really ought to be part of one to increase the borrowing capacity of the town, because things are expensive, and if you can't afford them, then they get put off, and it doesn't happen, and then they get more expensive. So I think that's something that we need to look at as a committee, and
And then the rates can't stay this low.
right. So we're gonna be able to buy the same amount of stuff
Right.
for more money. So
Later, yeah.
later, right. Darnell?
Question, so, are we gonna see the 5-year plan presentation, or are they gonna put that together so we can know if, it makes sense to raise from the 1.9? Or, I mean, if all that work was put in, I think it would be helpful.
I know I keep telling you
To
this.
figure out what was done, or what they came up with, or what kind of, you know, I mean, 'cause realistically, it's like, you know,
I know I keep telling you this, that we're gonna be invited to a presentation of the 5-year plan any minute now. And
we're halfway through the
tell you
budget
what.
process.
Before Monday, well, we've never had it, we didn't have a 5-year plan last year,
But that stopped us from doing so much
Right.
stuff, didn't it?
probably. So I'll tell you what, before Monday, I'll either have a date for you, or I will have material for you. Because I've been told February is the month, minimum. So, we'll see.
Waiting here.
Anyway, and yeah, I mean, obviously, capital projects should be a big part of the 5-year presentation. Don't know, haven't seen it. So, anything else for Jim, or can we let him go home?
So it's good to come get up last. I'll come back next year.
Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you.
I certainly
Jim.
appreciate your coming by, Jim,
Thanks,
and I'll,
Jim.
Good luck putting it together.
I'll send this stuff to you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, if I get that, because when it comes out, it'll be
Right.
questions.
Great. Very nice.
You sent it out. And I
Sure.
thought, it was my favorite one, but I don't understand it. No.
Well, he
It's the
just
yield.
left.
I know, I didn't want to keep everybody. So if it's not important, then I'm not gonna make any.
Okay, it's comparing the bond we just reissued to a benchmark of other bonds, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
and it would appear that
They're
for
neck and
part of
neck.
that curve, we're doing better than the
Yeah.
benchmark.
Yeah,
And I think that's what that is. And now, what benchmark it is, I'm not familiar with it. It's Mass Municipal,
MMD,
so.
it says,
that's the generic
Okay,
yeah,
US Treasury
AAA.
market for tax exempt bonds. So
Okay.
that's, you compare everything to the MMD,
But they're all triple
AAA
Yeah.
MMD.
All of the municipal.
but anyway, that is sort of proof that we didn't get snookered by whoever issued our bond.
Yeah, it
Okay.
looks like we're
We're
nose and
looking good.
nose here
We're looking
at the
good.
finish race.
Yep. Okay, the only other thing I have on the agenda is actually a quick review of the articles, the new articles for the Maytown warrant. And so I'd like to go through those just very quickly so that we all have an understanding of what's coming at us, to whom we need to speak about these things, who do we want to invite, stuff like that. So, I did send this out to everybody. I did not make copies for everybody. Sorry, that's not it. Here we go. 2015 Annual Town Meeting Articles.
You know what day you sent it?
Probably about a week ago.
Last week.
week and a
Last
half
week?
ago.
Last week.
Yeah. Anyway, never mind. I'll tell you about them.
Okay.
So, um, so the first item, new, and there are, I think I've got 17, as I said. Also, I can beam them up, but I'm not sure it's worth it. Is it worth it?
New articles.
Okay.
Got it.
Got it. Come on, it wouldn't take me that long to find them. Come on, jeez. All right. Okay, so the first one is access road transfer. And this is to see if the town will vote to transfer care, custody, management, and control from the Board of Selectmen for municipal dump purposes to the Board of Selectmen for general municipal purposes of the former landfill access road. Okay.
We did this last.
Didn't include the road.
They forgot to include the road
Oh,
first time
God.
around. So now we gotta make sure that the road is
It
included.
was just that little parcel.
change.
last-
Yeah, we did the land, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
didn't do the road.
Whoops.
You know, I mean, I didn't know that the road was so designated, you know, or so restricted before. But apparently it was, so this, anyway, so this should be more of an embarrassment than anything else, but it should be pretty easy. However, we will,
Does it include what's under the road as well, just in case?
anyway.
We should have a site walk, I think, shouldn't we, Seth?
Sidewalk.
Soon, Saturday maybe. Anyway, I'm sure that this time around, Bill Clark will bring us a map, because I will ask him to, so we know what we're talking about. And we are seeing Bill on Monday, the 9th of February, right after we speak to the library. And he will go over any of these articles after we go over the planning budget, which is,
Fund what?
the planning board budget is 30,000, something like that. So that won't take time, but we will have him to go over all these articles. Steve?
Can we have him explain why a road would need to be transferred from being used for dump purposes to being used for non-dump purposes? Since it's a road, you could traverse it anyway. Doesn't.
We can try. We will ask, we'll ask.
What was the rationale? I got the other part when we
Right,
were
the land.
transferring the land.
Right.
This is a road.
Sure.
It's a little
I
sketchy.
think maybe because the road was built on land that had been designated,
Yeah, or there's just probably some legal.
but
Use isn't changing. Still being used
it's
as
still
a
being
road.
used as a road. I don't know, it may be splitting hairs. Anyway, Darnell?
Yeah, and ask if there's any other underlying or issues that might be let's say not attained, but maybe attached to it that we might need to know about, or others might have complaints about, so that we can elicit other portions of the community to talk with us about them before
Right.
we get into town meeting.
So, question number one, are you kidding me? And question number two, is this related to anything that we should know about?
That's basically
Okay.
it, because I'm like,
All
I
right.
get into town meeting floor and then have 10 people ask us, why didn't you ask this question? I'm like,
Right.
did I?
No, and it shouldn't be our job to think of all, I mean, you know, the information should be forthcoming, and we
Right,
shouldn't have to
that's so.
ask questions. Okay. All right, the next article, town administrator. Okay. This is submitted by the Board of Selectmen and the Town Government Study Committee. We're fortunate that we have a member of the Town Government Study Committee here. You thought I forgot. Anyway, so if my quick précis doesn't hit the mark, you can fill in. Great.
Wednesday, last Wednesday.
This is, my understanding, okay, I'm not going to read this thing, it's half a page.
I can give a quick overview if you like.
That'd be grand.
Okay.
Thanks.
The purpose of this article is to invest the town administrator position with more authority and responsibility. It's what we're calling the strong administrator article for the town of Milton. It is patterned after some other articles that some other communities have. Yeah, we met with a consultant from the Mass Municipal Association last week in a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and got input on what they thought would make sense. It is to offload from the Board of Selectmen a lot of the day-to-day stuff that our current bylaw requires them to essentially make in public session, which really could be performed by a town administrator if that person had the authority to do it. They have offloaded some responsibility in the last 6 months, but since that's not in the bylaw, it would be subject to change by each successive Board of Selectmen. So it really, there's no consistency there. The duties being considered are quite strong. It's a very strong enhancement to that office. We have 2 members of the Government Study Committee working as a subcommittee, meeting with the chair of the Board of Selectmen to come up with language that will be contained in the recommendation. That will be very specific, that the town can consider. We're hoping to see it in our committee on Monday, the 26th, because we need to get to a consensus as soon as possible. So I would think that, if not next week, the week after, there should be language for us to look at and consider.
Okay, that's great. I just want to interject before I call on Steve and then Darnell. That probably after this review here, we're probably not going to be talking much about any of these until about February 18th, or perhaps even the first week of March. Depends on what we get done budgetarily. So, Steve.
You may not know this, but you said that the current duties are prescribed in bylaw.
No, I'm saying the current duties that have been added and offloaded to the administrator to make that a stronger position are not in the bylaw. So they're subject to change from
So there are some
any.
set of them in the bylaw that describe.
It's very vague.
So why the
very
extra
vague.
step of petitioning the general court instead of just changing the town bylaw?
You either have to do it by charter change or you have to do it by a petition to the state legislature. That's the only way we can do it. One of those 2 ways. And opening a charter review opens up everything for free-for-all, so we'll have to go through the state legislative process.
Change the town bylaw, you have to petition the general court. Change other bylaws and don't petition the general court.
Can you think of one?
Zoning bylaws,
Zoning bylaws are different.
apparently. There you go. So other bylaws are set in stone unless except by act of
That's my
legislature.
understanding. I mean, I don't know what difference it makes. We have to do what
Right,
the town council is telling us we have to do.
right. Fascinating. Darnell and then Kevin.
I would like to have, once the committee has come to their conclusion of what they want this to read and state and come to their opinion, to have those committee members come and do a presentation.
Of course.
You know, in front of us.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think an article could do it justice. And I would love to have that, if we're gonna make a decision for pro or con on whether we support it, to have this body, not now until, take it after, have a full vetting of that, because I think there'll be quite a few interesting issues.
I think
that
you'll be
should
surprised at how
raised. Yeah.
specific the recommendation will be. But it was always the plan that we would come and support the article before this committee, as well as the selectmen.
And this is a suggested recommendation. The
Yeah.
recommendation is ours.
Right.
No, I'm saying,
So-
no, I'm saying, the article itself, I wanna, not a recommendation, I'm talking about the article itself.
Well, you've got the
To give
article.
to give us the information that led up to the article, some more information about the
Oh, sure.
article and stuff, because, we say a strong, town administrative position, that's broad, But we also want to know what fed into it and, have questions and things to that nature as well. Because that information will help in making a decision whether we want to support or oppose this whole thing as well.
Right. Well, this is, the article you see here will require someone to write a recommendation, and the Town Government Study Committee is going to suggest a recommendation and write it and submit it to us. We can change it.
Yeah, I understand that,
Okay.
but I want to understand how, what brought that article to us.
With the
Right.
Also, with the background of that article and
Absolutely.
what brought it to us. And I think that's be something
So-
interesting and give the town the vetting for it as well.
There are a lot of articles in here that came from the Town Government Study Committee. So we'll probably spend a whole evening with the Town Government Study Committee. Rick Neely and beyond Rick, I don't actually know who's on it.
Leroy Walker,
Okay,
John Cronin,
okay,
um,
Bob Hiss,
Bob Hiss,
great.
Kathy Fagan,
Peter Mullen,
Peter Mullen, Mary McNamara.
So all these people who have been heavy hitters in town have been Warrant Committee chairman and whatever. Anyway, so it might be fun. Anyway, we'll get them all in here and we'll go through half of these articles because half of them came from the Town Government Study Committee. Kevin?
Yeah, my question's along the same lines as Darnell. This article is being submitted by
The Board of Selectmen and the Town Government Study Committee.
together.
That's what it says. Yeah.
Okay. My question really is, who initiated this originally? Was this an idea the Board of Selectmen had and went to the Town Government Study Committee, or was it vice versa? Or did the Board of Selectmen get this idea from the DOR and then went to the Town Government Study Committee? I just want to know what role the Board of Selectmen had in the initiation process of the whole thing.
The Government Study Committee recommended this 2 years ago and sent a detailed description of what they thought the responsibility should be to the selectmen.
Was this at their own initiation?
At the Government Study Committee's initiation, but they were looking at the DOR report when they were studying it. So I think that was a push in that direction. That original suggestion languished, and then I think more recently, in the past year, the Board of Selectmen also thought that it should be looked at, and then they started working on their draft. We were working on our draft, and we decided that we needed to get together to come up with a joint, agreed-upon draft for the duties.
Good.
Yeah, I'm not sure whose initiative it was initially. The DOR report came out after your initial town government study report, but I don't recall that there was anything in it about this position. So, but anyway, I'm not sure which came first. So maybe you can tell us which came first.
I don't know.
Okay.
I wasn't on the committee at the time, so.
But there is a template for this position. In other words, we're not.
There are
we're
a
not-
lot, there are a lot of templates. There are a
we're
lot of
not
towns who have
spot zoning
gone.
this, are we?
There are a lot of,
Are we creating a job tailor-made to Milton?
No.
No, but this
Okay.
was part of DOR when they came and talked about adding all these positions. I remember in the DOR report, it was like, well, we needed, to add, not only a town administrator, but a financial town, assistant town administrator, and then a secondary, operational assistant
No.
administrator, and
Yeah.
but this isn't a new
Quite a
position.
few,
This is
yeah.
a current position with added responsibilities and duties.
So the corollary question that we'll have is, well, okay, that's all fine and good, and that'd be terrific, and you're gonna put all these duties, new duties on the existing position. Is that new strong town administrator instantly gonna have to turn around and hire an assistant to handle all this? Maybe,
Maybe.
yeah. So, anyway, and that'll be something for us to consider, because it might be great for greater efficiency for the town, but it might be more money. So, well, it will be more money. Okay, so the next article, 3. This is an audit committee article. It is also from the Town Government Study Committee, and it almost got to town meeting before, almost got up to us year and a half ago.
Yeah, I don't remember the history of this one, why it didn't get moved
Okay,
at the time.
so it came out, I think it was a year and a half ago, and shortly after, well, it would have been submitted to the warrant in August, and that fall, the Department of Revenue report came out, and the Department of Revenue report on, this is essentially this report, by the way, back in the fall. It's the Milton Financial Review, I think it's called, MFR or something like that. Anyway, it was done by the Division of Local Services of the Department of Revenue. And its recommendations for the town and its audit committee far exceeded the article that the Town Government Study Committee had submitted. And for that reason, the article was pulled from the warrant. And, you know, with the thought that, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. So this is the result. I'm glad it came back. I was wondering what happened to it. And it's basically to reinvigorate the audit process as an integral function of the financial workings of the town. So, anyway.
Yeah, we used to have an audit committee, but it was not an audit committee established in our bylaws. It became sort of defunct, and then it was sunsetted because it's not a permanent committee established by the bylaws. So this will make it a permanent established committee, as outlined in the language, and it gives them power to set the rules and interview potential audit firms each year, and to make the recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. And one of the things that we insisted on being in it is the paragraph that says, the audit committee shall report to the annual town meeting, meaning through the annual report, not necessarily a report of the town meeting, on ongoing compliance with management letters and internal control recommendations. One of the things that we saw in the reports from the auditors were things in their recommendation letter that were recurring year after year after year and weren't really being addressed. So we thought that one of the things we ought to empower this group to do is to report, in their report, these things are still outstanding. It's been 2 years or 3 years or 4 years that they have mentioned these things to us and we haven't done it. Things like purchase orders. The town doesn't use a purchase order system. And hoping that by forcing them to mention it on an annual basis in the report, it will give a little more impetus for certain changes to be made.
Steve?
And this one changes the bylaw without a petition to the general court.
Doesn't change the bylaw. It adds to the bylaw something that's not there.
Bylaws.
And amend is to add, not to change what's there now.
Okay. But it's curious to me, Phil, that in one case.
Well, we'll find out. We can ask the town accountant.
That's all that
In the
is.
town council. I mean, it is either required or isn't required.
Well, we'll find out.
Okay.
Sorry, Michael.
Don't be sorry. Given that we're not going to discuss these for a couple of weeks, could we continue this conversation at a future meeting?
No.
Or move a lot
I mean,
faster.
we could ask. We'll move a lot faster. I would like to get through this quickly, just so people understand what's out there. Maybe we should come back to it. Maybe I'll make you a deal.
I'm listening.
Everybody read it. And I'll put it back on the agenda in the near future. Maybe even for next week. Okay, and we'll pick it up there.
Monday?
Tuesday, Wednesday.
We discussed this.
Not Monday?
Maybe Monday.
Meeting Monday?
Think you could, yes, we are meeting Monday and Wednesday. Wednesday we have have the Council on Aging and the cemetery and retirement, those three budgets on Wednesday.
So maybe this for Wednesday.
And we're meeting Monday?
Please.
Yes.
Monday is police?
No, no, no.
No, Monday we'll probably put this on the agenda, and we still need to review internally the library budget and the DPW budgets. So I think we have plenty to do, and yes, this will go faster if
Everybody's,
if we're up to speed on it. That would be great. Thank you for that suggestion, Lou. I hadn't realized what that was.
Do we have a DPW budget?
We do not have the DPW budget yet. I am expecting it any minute now. There were
Right with the 5-year.
there were some problems with it, and then over Christmas when Joe was going to look at it, there was a death in his family, and I did sit down with him. This was last week. For a couple hours, and gotten some of it done, revisions done, and the rest should be done very soon. You will have to run it by the Board of Selectmen again, I believe, because a change to one of the budgets. But that shouldn't hang up our ability. So, Paul, motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you all for coming.